Coach DeMarco here, and if you want to take your program to the next level, then you're going to want to check out this Get Better Basketball Live. I always tell coaches the two things that I focus on as a coach if I want to take my program to the next level. Number one is defense, because I think when you get into those really tough games, you have to get stops. But number two, and many coaches would argue it's number one, is shooting. And I'm excited for today's Get Better Basketball Live because I have Coach Shelangouski joining me once again, and he's going to share with you some of his favorite shooting drills. If you want to take your program to the next level, you're not going to want to miss this episode. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Coach DeMarco here with Get Better Basketball Live, and today my guest once again is Coach Shelangouski. Coach, I'm excited to have you back on to talk hoops again.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to have a chance to get on and talk with you. So.
Yeah, and I was talking before I brought you on as a little intro about one of the things I think that is, so important and critical if coaches want to take their program to the next level is shooting. And I know that's what we're going to talk about today. So can you give us just a little bit of background? You have a bunch of great drills. I was able to take a look at them ahead of time. But can you just talk a little bit about shooting and shooting within your program and, how you've incorporated some of these drills to, really work with your program? You have and I've said this the first time we met, you have an extremely good record as a coach. You've had a lot of success at every program you've gone to. So I think what you say and what you do holds a ton of weight for me as a coach, and I know it does for coaches out there. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on shooting and also some of these drills you're going to share.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, shooting has always been something that, much like you, has kind of just been like 1A, right? You want defense to be maybe your total focus, but 1A has got to be, you got to still be able to score points. You can stop people as much as you want, but you got to be able to score points. And one of the things that I think that I really try to enforce, I guess, in any program that I've ever coached is proper technique, proper form, proper footwork, because your whole body's got to be into the shot or it's never going to be consistent, and I've worked with set shooters, I've worked with on-the-move shooters, I've worked with kids that can't shoot at all, and we have to find something else for them to do. But, at the same time, nobody's shot is going to be, Klay Thompson-esque or Steph Curry-esque, and you're going to have to work with what you get, especially as a high school coach. And so, with that being said, I can even go back to my first couple years ever as a head coach, and I can remember one senior in particular that maybe had about the ugliest jumper I had ever seen. But by the time I got to him, trying to change it all his senior year would have just made him frustrated. So I knew he was making it in the ugly fashion that he was doing it, and I let him do it. And it still helped us to be as successful as we could have been that year. But when I can get them early, I do talk about fundamentals of shooting. Everybody has their own, I guess, way of saying it. I've always been kind of a ball bicep person. That ball's got to rest above your bicep and, keeping the elbow tucked. And, then you have a bunch of people talking to you about where your other elbow needs to be and how far apart your fingers need to be spread. And, there's a bunch of tools out there to keep your fingers spread. And it's like, a lot of this stuff is just overpriced mumbo jumbo if you just kind of work with kids. So that's kind of where I'm at with it is I take what I get. And if I have to tweak anything, usually kids are asking more nowadays, because it is coaching in the times of, significant mental health stuff to where everybody wants to be perfect, even though they don't have to be. And so, I use the tin cup method then. It's like where, his caddy made him switch his keys over to his other pocket and turn his hat around and put a T in his left ear or whatever. It's like, sometimes it's just, move your elbow this way. And then they make five in a row. They're like, geez, I didn't realize how easy that was. It's like, well, sometimes you just have to get out of your head and shoot the ball. You didn't really do anything different. It was just something to tell you. So.
Coach, I appreciate how focused you are on the fundamentals and some of those details that you're sharing with us. I think make such a big difference. Some of those, a little wrinkle with a shot can make a huge difference in their alignment and the trajectory of the basketball. And as I think about some of these drills that you're going to share with us today, and like I said, I had a chance to look at them, and I think they're awesome. And I know there's different types of drills. There's ones that are on air. There's small-sided games. There's ones where you're going to contest and not contest. And so there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But if you could just talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what makes a good shooting drill in practice?
As far as time frame per shooting drill, I think that can always vary. It depends on if it's a team shooting drill, if it's more of an individual shooting drill, if you have goals to hit, if you have running to do after it, because of not reaching the goal. So you kind of, you also kind of gauge your team with it too. I mean, if I've had teams in the past say, well, some of these things are kind of, mundane and boring because we keep doing them, and they don't understand the fundamentals behind it, and the reasoning that we do some of that stuff repeatedly. But I'm a big, with individual shooting, I'm a big either hit a number or hit a short time frame. You'll see some of the drills I do today are anywhere to a minute. Some of them are 4-minute shooting drills as a team, and I actually like gauging it based on the level I'm at. So if I've coached high school for all these years, I like doing stuff, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, or 8 minutes, where it's sections of a game that you could, possibly use it or call it and talk about, the importance of getting up as many shots as you can, because even then you still have to consider, if I did an 8-minute shooting drill as a team, you're not playing offense for 8 minutes. You're not shooting for 8 minutes in any quarter ever, unless you're playing like nobody. But when it comes to that, a lot of it's about repetition. And so I don't go over the top where, man, coach got us 100 shots today, and that's always going to be a good thing to get 100 shots or whatever. But some of it's, I'd rather have 50 quality shots than 50 quality and 50 where they're just past due. You know what I mean? They're past the drill. And so that's kind of where I'm at with time frame.
I think we have a similar philosophy in kind of those quick 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute type of drills where they're competing against the clock or they're trying to hit a number. So that competitive aspect, I think, is so important. But what are some of the other things that, in your opinion, make a good shooting drill in practice? You kind of talked about the time frame. What are the components that you want in a good shooting drill that you use with your team?
Competition and being competitive with it, hitting goals and things is always just what I focus on. When I've actually done shooting drills before where I gauge the success, I don't count. I gauge the success on energy. I've gone and sat on stairs before and not watched girls or boys that I'm coaching do the drill, and I gauge it based on their energy level. If I know they're making it, I know their energy's high, and I don't have to count. So what makes a good one? A lot of times, like I said, if you keep it competitive, but you also keep it fun, that's key, because shooting should be the most fun part of a game. And we can keep it, moving at game speed. Like, those are key things for me, because game speed, anybody can walk in a gym and shoot 100 shots, but if those 100 shots haven't gotten you to sweat, you're not doing it right, and everyone's going to be sweating when they do it. So that's anything that I have, especially today, is always going to be constant movement into a shot. So that's kind of always what makes our shooting drills, in my opinion, probably some of the best. Is you got to be moving, got to be competition based, got to be fun, and got to be game speed.
Yeah, I think that game speed aspect is so important. And you brought up a great point there, that players are going to be moving and they're going to be simulating some of the things that they're going to be doing in a game. You can sit there, and there's a time and a place to sit there and just get in a spot and fire up a bunch of threes. And I think individually, you can do some of that stuff in workouts, but when you're in practice, you really do want it to be, game speed. You want them moving. You want them taking shots that they're going to take in the game. And I think that's such a great point and such a critical thing to incorporate into practices. So, and I think really at all levels, from the youth level all the way up through high school and college, that's something that you want to see. So as we look at some of these drills today and we kind of dive into them in a couple of minutes, what are some of the kind of themes or some of the things that we're going to look at?
Well, I mean, like I said, everything that I kind of said that I enjoy with shooting drills, you're going to see those concepts, and I also leave it very open-ended. When I put drills together before, I'll put some things like, here's what I would do, but here's some other things that I've seen people do. And that's that's what I think the nature of the beast is when I share this stuff, is I hope that people take it, but I also hope that people take it and make it their own. Because while we're in a business of stealing everything anyways, you also have to be original and kind of true to yourself and true to the team you have. And so that's, I think everything that I'll show today will be adaptable to any level and any team. And you can ramp it up or ramp it down depending on, your skill level. But that's what I hope that people kind of get out of any time I've shared anything, is everything's doable, with the right technique or right kids. But sometimes you have not the right kids, and you need to find ways they're still going to be successful too. So I hope that people can take that and for what it's worth today.
I think that's such a great point for coaches too. I've seen a lot of drills out there, and some of them are specific, like they involve pick and roll action, and then you're going to get different shots up. And if you're not a pick and roll team, how can you morph that drill and kind of work that in with your team? And I've taken some great drills that might not have fit exactly what we wanted to do as a team, but then we were able to kind of morph that into what worked for us. So I think that's a great point with coaching just in general. As you take things in, you really have to think about, how can that work with your team and how can that fit into your style as a coach. So why don't we jump into the first drill here, Coach, and take a look at it.
Okay, so first one I have is a drill that I kind of stole from Jay Wright, but it's kind of one of my favorites in terms of an individual drill. With this, part of the thing, I'll zoom in here too, and so people can see it. But part of the thing with Jay Wright is he's got some of the most skilled players, and that you've never heard of. And so I was like, what is something he does to get shooting going? So in this drill, it's just a 2-minute drill. Player will start with a layup, then move to the mid-range jumper right around the free throw line, and making sure they spin the ball themselves to work on the footwork to catch 1-2 or whatever your program does. Then move to the 3-point line for a jumper, again spinning the ball. Then they have to return to that free throw line and make 2 pressure free throws when they're tired. And it doesn't sound like somebody would be tired, but this is a lot like those youth drills we used to do called hot shot, where you have to try to find the spots and make those shots. It's very similar. But here's kind of the cool thing is, if it's a shot, you stay there until you make it. And once the drill starts, you're only timing during the shot. So on the free throws, you stop, the time. But round 2 starts with what time you have left. So with 2 minutes, let's say it takes me 40 seconds for some reason to make these shots. Okay. So now I go to the free throw line, I make my 2 pressure free throws. I'm sitting at 1:20. So then I go back to the layup and the time starts again at 1:20, and I have to try to get those done, quicker. And you make a competition out of how many times you can actually get through this drill before that 2 minutes is up. Again, you can always penalize kids and give them conditioning if they don't make it through this, but I don't know what the point of that would be. So, but I really like this drill. I think it's one of those, when time's a factor, especially maybe the 3rd or 4th time through, and you're looking at 35 seconds to complete this, there's a little more pressure on the situation. And if you look at Villanova, 3 of the last 5 years, where have they been, right? I mean, they're right there at the top of everybody. And so, Jay Wright doing stuff like this with individual workouts, I think it bodes well for about any program, because you're not asking kids to shoot Herculean shots. It's a layup, it's a free throw jumper, and it's a 3-point shot. And I think you can change these spots anywhere you want them to be as well, and adapt to whatever your strengths are.
Yeah, I really like this, Coach, because there's a competitive aspect to it. They're competing against a time limit. I even think you could have 2 different players competing to see who can get the most points or the most shots in. So I really like that, and I really like the progression in it, how they're working their way back, and then they get to the free throw line again, and they kind of start over. I love that as a warm-up drill. I like it as a competitive drill, thinking like an individual workout. Players can do this on their own. I like it so much that I'm actually going to share this out. I always try to find great shooting drills to share out in my newsletter, and I'm going to put this one in this week, with credit to you, of course, Coach. I know you learned it from Jay Wright, but I think you deserve proper credit for sharing that out, because I really do like this, and I like that, a coach can be doing it, working on it with the player. You can have players competing, And obviously a kid can just go out down to the park by themselves and they can be competing, you know, against the clock or a score limit that they set for themselves. So there's a lot of ways this can be incorporated. And I heard you mention, but I just want to follow up on the spots. So is that something that you'll do? You know, they do this for 2 minutes and do you adjust the spots and do it again? Or from one workout to the next, is it something that, you know, are these kind of your go-to spots, or these were Coach Wright's go-tos? But have you played around with those spots and done some different things with this?
Layups can come in any way. It could be reverse layups. It could be floaters in the middle of the lane. It could be, you know, a lot of things with that. You know, your free throw line jumper and stuff, you know, you have both your elbows, that how many times your team shoot from there now, right? The 3-point line is anywhere around there. And so I think that you can play around with the spots. I've always been a big fan, and I'll show you a couple drills even in this. I love 5-spot shooting. You know, when you talk about corners, wings, top, the key, wing, and corner on the other side, you know, you could be doing the same thing here. You could be doing, you know, layup, jumper, 3-point shot, layup, jumper, 3-point shot. And you could do the same drill for, you know, it would technically be 10 minutes long. You'd end up with, 10 free throws by the end of it as well. Plus you could shoot more free throws depending on what you're doing. So, I mean, there's a lot of variances with it. And usually I'm going to probably hit more than just these spots.
I love the 5-spot shooting drills as well, Coach. So I appreciate you kind of bringing that up. And I know we're going to get a chance to take a look at some of them. And one last point I want to make on this drill before we transition is how free throws are incorporated. When I work out players, and even as a coach in practice, I know there's a lot of different philosophies, but I want players to go through a drill and then hit 2 free throws at the end, you know, and I like to incorporate that as a player development coach and even at the high school level as a coach. So I like that this incorporates free throws, you know, into it. And it's, you know, players are moving and then they have to get to the line and hit free throws, because I think that gives them a little bit of a game-like feel when they're tired. So that's another thing I wanted to point out I really like about this drill. So I'm excited to see what we have in store next. What's the second drill we have?
Yeah, so as I scroll down here, so this 37-point thriller drill, I got from Pure Sweat. You know, Alan Stein and I have actually had several conversations. He actually spoke at my school on Skype as well too. But just anything Pure Sweat with him or Drew Hanlon has always been good. And so with this, you know, it's shoot 5 catch and shoot 3-point shots at each spot. Shoot 5 one dribble, you know, pull-ups at each spot, right and left. And you have 1 minute to finish the 15 shots. So for instance, you know, I go to spot 1, I'm going to get 15 shots at this, and I got to try to do it in a minute. Okay. You could set a goal. I mean, for a high school kid, you know, I put on here, a good goal is to finish with over 27 points, but there's 37 points possible at each spot, right? Plus the 2 free throws or whatever when you go here. But for me, you know, I might look at it and say, you know what, try to get 20 points, right? That might be 3 of your threes, there's 9, you know, maybe you hit 2 or 3 of your jump shots, and you finish at the free throw line 2 for 2. You know, that's not a bad thing for a high school kid. But what I like about this is, again, it's timed, so you get 1 minute to finish this, so you don't get to just return to the line and, you know, kind of lollygag, take a couple dribbles, whatever. Like, you got to be catching and shooting, catching 1 dribble pull-ups, you know, one and go. So you're going to have to probably have a coach. You're going to have a couple other players, you know, shagging the basketballs and stuff. But really good individual workout that, I mean, if you think about it and you're getting 15 shots at 5 different spots, that's 75 shots. Plus you're getting, you know, 10 free throws, 85 shots in 5 minutes. You know, that's pretty stellar when you talk about, well, you know, count the free throws, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. But either way, that's a lot of shots in that short amount of time. So I've been a big fan of this, and you know, with Pure Sweat, that's pretty much what you get. You know, they're not going to give you 5 minutes to complete 15 shots. They're going to give you 1 minute. They're going to, you know, I wouldn't even be surprised if they took this drill and had you do the next spot with less time on it. You know, you get 45 seconds with this one. I think there's a lot of variances with it. And again, it depends on your level. I could see high school level getting 2 minutes to complete the 15 shots and then build towards 1 minute. But much like the last drill, there's just like there's a pressure situation on that. Because once that 1 minute's about up, you're probably on shot 13 or 14, and you need to make sure you bust it back to that 3-point line and get your one dribble pull up in, while the pressure's on the line. And I mean, what better way to build mentally tough kids than put them in a mentally tough situation?
Yeah, and one of the things I like, I followed Coach Hanlon and actually had a chance to meet him in person, and he shared some of his tips on his player development workouts. And I think he does such a great job, as obviously evidenced by his players, Jason Tatum for the Celtics, just being one of the many he works with. But he does such a great job. And one of the things that resonated with me, and you brought up, I think two things here. One is that time limit, that 1 minute, and you're getting up a bunch of different shots. And he will share out a lot of times, in 5 minutes, you can do this shooting workout. And you don't need to be in the gym. You can be, and there's times you should be, but you can do things in a 5-minute span, and you can get up a ton of shots if you're efficient, if you're working hard, if you're at full speed. And sometimes I think that a lot can be said about that. At the end of the workout, doing a 5-minute shooting drill like this, or to start out a workout, there's a time and a place for it. And I really like that. And the other thing that always resonated with me from Drew is the different shots being incorporated, because that gives it a game-like feel. There's 5 catch and shoot threes, there's 5 one dribble, there's 5. So you're doing different things. And I know he shares that out a lot. And that's something that I always took with me as I got into kind of player development is, not just doing one type of shot, but if you can, and there's a place for that, but if you can incorporate in a lot of different things. So I think this drill has so many different pieces to it. You could do it individually and just add more time and you spin the ball out to yourself, or you can do it with a partner in practice, and in 5 minutes, you're getting up so many different shots. So there's so much value to this type of drill. And, I have to ask, when you've used it, I see the catch and shoot, the one dribble shots. Have you tried other different types of shots in this? Is it open to, you could do, a catch and shoot 3, it could be one dribble, or advanced players might want to do a one dribble, step back. I'm thinking like, college, pro, or maybe really advanced high school players. You can incorporate some of those different actions in there. Have you done anything aside of just the basic stuff?
Yeah, a lot of mine have been step backs, to be honest with you. Just instead of making it one dribble pull-ups, it might be 2 dribble with a step back. I've actually done things before where if a kid's struggling with a drill like this, it might be 5 catch and shoot threes and then 5 baseline drives for layups. Just see the ball go in the rim because, part of it's about confidence. If you have a scheme like this where it's 5 catch and shoot threes, 5 one dribble pull-ups, 5 one dribble pull-ups, you could vary it with step backs. You could spin move into the lane. You could do a lot of things with this. From the top of the key, I really like to go elbow to elbow on the one dribble pull-ups. So if it takes you 2 dribbles, I don't know why it would, but if it takes you 2 dribbles, then, get somewhere a little bit closer. See how far you can get with your 2 dribbles. I've had kids start top of the key more in the center circle here to see how far their 2 dribbles or one dribble will take them. Because a lot of times, especially coaching, when I've coached girls, and I just talked to one about this last week when I did a workout, is, sometimes kids dribble until they shoot rather than realizing they get the 2 steps or they get the, how far your dribbles can take you. And so a drill like this is a really good one to, I think, point out some of that stuff and some of those mini techniques that you, how far you can get with your dribble.
I like how you also kind of brought in the youth, like an example that I think would be really good for anyone, but I think the youth level, taking those 5 catch and shoot and then the 5 layups, I think that's a nice way to incorporate that in for maybe some players that are new to the game and just getting started. So there's so many, hopefully as coaches are watching this, and we talked about this, there's a lot of different ways to take this and make it your own. And if you're coaching or working, with kids that are 10 or 11 years old, they might not be shooting 3-pointers. They might move in. Yeah. You might add in the layup component. So there's a lot of different ways to take this 37-point drill and kind of make it, what works for you. So love it. Love the 5 spot. Love the amount of shots you can get up. And as you said, it could be, 5 minutes could be at the end of the workout. You could do this 4 or 5 times, and it could be a 25-minute type of drill. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And if you're getting up those 300 or 400 shots, in a short amount of time, that's kind of a cool thing to think about for players. You know, you can get in 30 minutes and probably do this 5 times and get up a lot of shots.
The next one I do, I have actually done this quite a bit as a warm up to start practice. I've done it for kind of a changing of pace for practice, but it's called agility shooting. This works a lot on footwork stuff. So like back in the day, we used to do a lot of spin to yourself kind of thing, and 1, 2, and we're up, right? And so this one actually starts here, kid second in line. I usually do about 3 or 4 a hoop. So it's a good team shooting one at the same time as it is an individual shooting one. First kid in line actually sprints up the lane line, reverse pivots and shuffles, defensively over to this next elbow, then opens up with a pivot and comes around here for a shot off a catch and shoot. But I have actually varied my shots. I tell kids to, don't stick to just your jump shots. If you want to come out here and shoot a 3, if you want a 12 to 15 footer, if you want to dribble all the way in for a layup or a reverse layup, I'm fine with that, especially if you've missed 3 or 4 shots out here, go see that ball go in the rim. But then, that person who shoots, when they shoot, that next person's already going up the lane line, reverse pivot and coming around. And so it's about, hustling after that basketball, getting it to the next person in line for the pass. Like I said, I like this as an 8-minute drill, to be honest with you. I go 4 minutes on each side because that's allowing them to shoot over both shoulders. It's allowing them to plant, 2 different feet as their shooting feet. For lefties, I think if you ever have a team full of lefties, I think you're actually at a huge advantage. But if you ever have several lefties on your team, they'll probably appreciate seeing both sides of the floor here. But I really like this mostly for the footwork. And it's not something that gets boring for kids. It's about talking, calling for the ball, making a move off the catch, or making a shot off the catch. A pretty simple drill, but very, very effective.
Yeah, we've seen a couple where, players can kind of do it on their own. And I like this, as a team drill, and you mentioned as a warm up, but I also see kind of the competitive part to it too. I'm thinking like that 2-player could actually pass, close out on the shooter, and then go into their shuffle and then plant and come back. And then 3 could close out on them. So you could do it as a warm up. You could also incorporate, contesting shots and have players track. And so, it goes back to, again, it is a simple drill, as you said, but I think there's a lot of things you can do. It could be that warm-up drill. It could be great at the youth level. You could use it in a workout with a couple of players and add in contesting shots, track points. You can put a time limit on it. So I'm seeing like so many different things that can come out of this, from very basic to, really as advanced as you want to make it. And I like that about all these drills that you're sharing, Coach, is that there's a lot of different ways from youth level all the way along that these have value. So I'm appreciating you sharing them, and I'm getting a lot of ideas myself as I look at them.
Well, I think, one additional thing is you can always throw a chair right here and work on catch and sweeps. You can always throw, I had a couple of those dummies from whatever company does the, big orange dummies that look like this. I've had a couple of those where, the pass has to go around somebody. And so the pass is very crucial, kind of like almost an inbounds pass from the baseline. There's just like you said, there's a lot you can do with it. I really stressed footwork probably at a, maybe at a collegiate or pro level, just with high school kids, because, it's such an awkward stage. You're going to get kids who are well-rounded and pretty salty, and then you're going to get kids who can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And you need to make sure that they, understand that they got to have that plant foot. They got to sweep with not moving their back foot and their pivot foot. And, it's just little things you can look at when there's 3 or 4 kids at a basket. So I've always liked this one.
Yeah, love it. And I love the whole, everything you said about footwork and jump stops. I've experienced as a coach. So you are spot on, and using it for that reason. I think a lot can be said about that. And you even gave an example of putting a chair there or putting some other obstacles, whether it's one of those dummies with their hands up. But there's a lot of little things you can do, and that also can help with the passing. It can help with the footwork. So there's so many details here, I think, that coaches and takeaways that coaches are going to be able to see. And footwork is huge. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one I have is kind of a three-parter here, dribble, catch, screen, drill. So I've actually, and you can put the cone or chair or anything anywhere you want, but it's a three-person drill. So everybody's kind of responsible for something with this. So player with the ball actually starts with the ball, and they're going to attack that cone or that chair, make a move, a quick move, and get around for a layup, okay? But now they're going to use, once they make that layup, your second person here is going to take that ball out of the net. They're going to come back out here to the passer. Once that happens, you don't let your kids leave early. Part of that's about kind of following instructions with this too. So I really like that, especially as a junior high teacher. But with this, now you're coming around that chair or that cone, kind of like it's a pin down screen, right? And coming here as a, pin down shot, you can curl around this, any kind of cut you want. You could even flare cut this if you wanted to. But it just kind of depends on what your program's set up to do. If you're big on flare screens, big on double staggered, maybe you set an extra cone down here and they're practicing coming off at that angle. There's just a lot with that. So you got your catch and shoot, catch and drive, catch one dribble pull-ups, whatever you want. The third one, okay, is now once we take that shot, they're going to get the pass back out here to this individual, and they're going to pass to this kid, and now this kid's going to use it as a ball screen. So now we have, again, three different actions. We're attacking, we're curling, or we're, fading, flaring, whatever you want to do, and now we're using it as a ball screen. I've actually even used kids in this section as opposed to a chair or cone if you have enough kids. Doing it that way, and now they can see how to rub off the shoulder and either make the pass or get downhill and get to the rim, because too many kids come way too wide off the screens today anyways. This is especially with me running pick and roll stuff, I absolutely love this drill. So
Coach, I think this is a great model of, and I want to point something out here, and I really appreciate you sharing this drill. You're using a cone in this drill. And I think it's important for coaches that are watching this to know, like, that's okay, right? I know there's a lot of things out there on social media, and, I always, and I know you're from the same, thought process. We really try to keep it positive. And, I love the way that you're using it in this drill because they're getting an attack to the basket. You can have them do a move, a stutter step, a hezzy, a crossover at the cone, and attack. Then they're coming out and getting a catch and shoot situation, and then they're using it as a ball screen. So to me, that's great use in that particular situation. And if you have three kids and you have that cone down, you're incorporating that. I do drills like this with players. Yes, I want to do SSGs. I want to do live contest drills, but there is a place for this. And I'm at all levels, from high school right up to the pros. Drills like this are valuable. I see coaches, best player development coaches, doing drills like this. And I think it's important to point that out. And, at the youth level, I think you can put wrinkles and add things in here. I think it's just, there's so many different things, and I'm seeing from this drill so much value. But I want to point that out because I know there's a lot of talk and it comes up in social media. This is a perfect example of a great drill that incorporates, there's a cone on the floor, and that's okay. And I guess as I look at this, I want to ask, so is there a rotation now that player one goes through the circuit, and then do you rotate three, or what does that next step look like in this?
Yeah, I mean, my third person up here, the passer, is going to become the next shooter. Rebounder is going to become the next passer, and this person becomes the next rebounder. Talking about it, you could put a fourth person here, and actually, instead of using a cone, if people are anti-cones, which I read all that stuff too, but some of the stuff they post, I'm anti that stuff too, because some of it's just like, dear God, like, what are you trying to show a kid how to do, when they don't need all this stuff. So,
Agreed.
You know what I mean? You could put a fourth player up here, and maybe, it's a little bump off of the, inside out dribble you tell kids to take, which I love inside out dribbles, by the way. And but you could put your fourth person here, and then, you know, it's a bump for the layup, it's a contest for the jump shot, and then it's actually, now they're on offense and they're your pick and roll kid, where you can, you know, throw a ball to them and still come off and catch and shoot, you know, or take a layup or whatever. So you could throw this in and put a fourth person and probably do a lot more things with it too.
You could add the fourth person and get those extra shots in. You could do it with 3. It could be a player development workout with 3 players. You know, even me, you know, as a coach, I love this. I do things that are similar with players when I work them out, and I have a couple of basketballs ready to go, and they're doing like 3 or 4 actions in a row. And I think that, you know, makes it game speed and game like. You know, we talked a little bit about that before. So, you know, you could add the fourth player in, and you also, you know, I'm looking at this and saying you could have 1 less player, or, you know, it could just be a player development coach with 1 player, and you could get them through this circuit. So again, it speaks to the point that these are such great drills that you're sharing, because there's so many different things that you can do with them. And whether you have 1 player or 4 players, you know, and even in the beginning, I wasn't seeing, you know, the player development, a coach with 1 player, how this could work. And now as I look at it, I'm seeing so many different opportunities. So it's pretty cool.
You know, I like it for the sake of, you know, it does matter how quick this person gets that rebound out to this kid. It does matter what kind of pass this kid, you know, is going to throw, because if they're just out there to be out there, you know, they're not getting much out of this, and this kid's not getting much out of it. But if they're out there, like, you know, getting it up here quick, getting it to them, a nice crisp pass, it's only going to sharpen their skills too. So that's any drill that I do like this. That's, you know, I talk about that stuff quite a bit.
All great points, Coach.
So this one here, so there's a lot with this. Fred Hoiberg is one of, in my opinion, probably one of the most underrated shooters of, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. You know, obviously an Iowa State guy. I've talked with Fred on a number of occasions. He's as good of a dude as he looks. He's really nice. And, you know, this was something that he had put together for himself as a player, as well as his players at Iowa State. I'm sure he does very similar things right now at Nebraska. But he's just, you know, he's a mastermind when it comes to shooting. And so this is several things, and I've done these as individual drills, as well as I've done these with an individual kid, and I've done all the drills. The first one's the Larry Bird drill, 60 attempts, 20 at each, you know, spot. You got elbow to elbow, you have elbow to corner on the right and left side for a total of 60 shots. Again, works best for the rebounder. Pretty simple, but pretty effective in terms of, especially if you have some set shooters that need to get their feet set and work on that. I always really like this one, even just like I said, as maybe a group shooting drill. You have your pin down series with this, just, you know, cones or chairs, work on kids kind of curling it. You could, again, throw kids in there if people are anti-cone, and they could work on their pin down screens, you know, just to kind of get that going. But then there's a series of shots. So you're attempting them on both sides, but you can do tight curls. You can go mid-lane floaters, elbow jump shot, wing 3-pointer, maybe a fade off of it, or fade even to the corner, which I really like. This third one that I have on here is actually probably been one of my favorite drills as an individual shooting drill. So if I have kids stay after for shooting, and it's 1 kid, maybe 2 kids, I do this transition shooting, and it's been one of the best drills I think I've ever seen, as simple as it actually is. So I actually don't put cones out here. I just marked them as the 5 spots when I did this, but kids are shooting from all 5 spots, but they can't leave that spot until they make that shot. And so in between every shot, here's the crappy part, I guess, for a kid, is they got to sprint to half court in between every shot. So if I shoot this one, miss it or make it, I'm still running to half court. If I make it, I get to go to the next spot. But if I miss it, I'm right back here. Well, if a kid's not shooting well that day, they're going 4, 5, 6 shots here before they actually get to go to the next one, which means 4 or 5 times they got to run to half court and, you know, back. So the reason I consider it transition shooting is every kid should be sprinting up the sideline or their lane line. You know, it's got to be a sprint, and you got to be ready to catch and shoot it on the drop of a hat. And especially if you look at today's game, which I don't always agree with this, but today's game is run as fast as you can, find a 3-point shot and shoot it. And so this is the type of drill. I've done this with 15-footers. I've done this with 3-pointers. I've done this with block shooting and elbow shooting, free throw shooting with, younger kids. But I like it just for the sake of, like I said, it transitions from one spot to the next. It transitions from running back on defense to running back on offense. There's a lot of points with this. And that's what I like I said, about the first three. These first couple are maybe warm-ups, kind of get the blood flowing a little bit. This one will get you cooking. Again, I think it's why one of the reasons, you look at Fred Hoiberg's stats as a player, he didn't score a ton of points, but when he was on, he was on. And I think, when he does drills like this with his players, that's why Iowa State was one of probably the best teams under him. Nebraska, that's a different story. It's tough to beat out Creighton to be the best basketball team in Nebraska. And I just don't see it happening at the Husker Nation up there. They kind of cling to their football still from 1994, but you got a lot of these things from Fred Hoiberg, and I hope he's still implementing them.
Mayor, I always remember watching back in the day, and the mayor, and I remember actually seeing the story, if I'm remembering it correctly, was that he won a state title back in Iowa, and he got some write-in votes in a local mayoral race. So that's where he got the nickname the mayor from. I remember as a kid watching that, and his name always, it's one of those things, Fred Hoiberg, the mayor, hearing people say it. And that story always kind of stuck with me. I don't know if there was any truth to it, but it makes sense if it was. It was true.
Yeah. It's probably one of the nerdiest NBA nicknames of all time, but he embraced it, and that's why. The guy was, like I said, I've talked to him a few times. Just one of the nicest dudes you'd probably ever meet. Not, he's been around some of the best players, but you wouldn't know it. He's pretty down to earth guy. Next one that he did is just a star drill. You actually start and finish in the same spot, but pretty self-explanatory here. You got corner to top, top to corner, corner to wing, wing, and then back to the corner. 2 reps through to make the star drill. Got to make 7 out of 10 or repeat, right? So, asking kids to shoot 70% from 3 is probably outlandish. So I've done this before and said, okay, you got to make 4 out of 10. Because 40% from 3 is pretty stellar, especially for a high school kid. But if you go through this twice, it's quite a bit of running. I've never done this as a 2-point shot. I've always done this as a 3-point shot. But you certainly could, adjust and get kids a little more confident with it.
Coach, those 2 drills, the star drill and actually a couple of drills very similar. So the transition shooting, something that I did and kind of took with me growing up, and I believe it originated from Duke University. So I've always called it the Duke drill. But we would do 5 spots, and you have to make 5 shots from a spot. So if you make a shot, you go half court and back. If you miss a shot, you have to go full court and back. And when I start players out doing this at a lower level, we're not shooting 3-pointers, and maybe it's 1 or 2 shots from a spot. And even during the high school season, I'd start players at like 2 post-type players, 2 3-pointers. Better shooters, we'd start at 3, but by the end of the year, we'd be making 5 or 6 from every spot, and they'd get pretty good. They'd hit a 3, half court back, hit a 3, half court back. So kind of similar to transition shooting. Really like drills like that for the conditioning purpose. And the star drill I stole from Oregon women's coach, Kelly Graves, just 5 shots at each spot, but you're kind of using that star pattern. So very similar. So there's some definite variations, and I just want to attest to the fact that both of those are similar drills I use with players, and those are terrific drills. So I'm glad you shared it. I actually really like the transition shooting as a wrinkle to the Duke drill, which takes a little bit longer. I think this could be a quicker hit and really for players as they're starting out, but there's a lot of things you can do off of that too.
The last one here for Fred Hoiberg shooting stuff is sideline to sideline shooting drill, much like the transition, except you're just kind of running back and forth, sideline to sideline. But you'll start at the top of the key, you'll shoot, sprint to sideline, and got to make 7 out of 10. I've done this, like I said, with one dribble pull-ups, pump fakes dribbles, layups. You can do a lot with it. But again, returning to the top of the key, sprinting to the sideline and back. You're not necessarily coming in from this angle to shoot a whole lot, but you are actually able to, whether it's, double staggers or you're coming up to the top of the key to get downhill or whatever. I think there's a lot of things you can work off of this, but it's more of a conditioner. And Fred Hoiberg was a big one on, shooting on tired legs. And if you're never shooting on tired legs, you're making a lot more shots. So that's kind of the biggie on that one. This is my last shooting one that I have. And this is something, so I'm gonna pay homage to a guy I coached with. So he was, in my opinion, he's a Hall of Fame coach in the state of Iowa. He's got to be close to 400 wins, but I know he's over 300 wins. He's one of the greatest people I ever knew, but he gave me my first job while I was in college. And I was coaching freshman girls ball, eventually took the fresh soft job the next year and worked with him for 3 years. And I even tried to stay at that school for my first teaching job, and it just didn't work out. And, we talk periodically, but Robert Driscoll is the coach at LaPorte City High School for girls basketball in LaPorte City, Iowa. And he had, whether he stole it from somebody or not, this was just one of those drills where I fell in love with it because it just gets so many shots. But back to like what we talked about at the beginning, you have to decide how long you want to give for each shot, right? And so this drill starts with Micans. So you can do this with posts and guards, but you start with Micans. You go, and I typically go for 30 seconds for Micans. I've gone for minutes with Micans as well, but if you're talking anything more than a minute, you're going to probably have kids start to pass out eventually. But I go with Micans to start with. My second shot is right side elbow to baseline, and you're just working back and forth. And I go usually for a minute for each jump shot. I go third shot is my left side elbow to baseline. My fourth shot is actually free throw to wing. So when I come here, I stop at the free throw line. I come out to the right, shoot, stop at the free throw line, shoot, come out to the left side, shoot. But if you look, it covers every spot you can possibly even shoot at. And then there's still variances if you want to on how you want them finishing, right? I've done reverse Micans before. I've done, catch and you got to put the ball on the floor and make shots. Your extra kids obviously should be rebounders in this drill. Make sure you're giving good passes. And then after I do right side and left side elbow baseline, free throw to wing, I'll end with something else. Maybe it is bringing them back in for reverse Micans, or maybe it's something about, I want them shoot and catch and shoot threes or whatever. I'll come up with something to end this. But the main shooting routine is your Micans, your right side, left side elbow to baseline, and then your free throw to wing. And it covers a lot of ground, but and it's fairly simple. But my goodness, do you get a lot of shots up? And a kid is essentially shooting for, if you have them go all in order, you got 30-second Micans, 1 minute, 2 minutes. So that's 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes straight of shooting for that kid. And that's probably about the amount of time a kid can probably go full speed, and then they're going to need a break. I don't do it that way. I rotate kids for every shot. But I think the biggest thing I've actually put into this in the last few years is I don't want a quiet hoop. I want everybody talking at that hoop. So I have a kid closing out to the other kid shooting. I have, everybody's cheering for that kid shooting at their hoop, and I reward loudest hoops, just a lot of things with it, because if we're not talking to our teammates, they're not used to shooting in a loud gym. They're used to shooting in a quiet gym. And that's not, unless you absolutely suck, you shouldn't be shooting in a quiet gym.
Love the, the conditioning aspect to it too. I think, it goes to show there's a lot of ways to build in conditioning, whether it's in practice or a workout, where, players are using game skills, but you're getting, you're hitting both ends of it. So, we saw such a variety of drills, from ones that, you can use more of a team, team oriented, to ones that could be individual by yourself, to ones that could be with a coach or a partner. So I feel like there's a variety of drills here. And I want to ask you, as you were implementing these into practice, and, using them with your team? Are these drills that you use weekly? Might you use a couple of these per week, or how often were you incorporating these drills in practice with your team?
Shooting routine, definitely weekly. There's obviously other things that I incorporated weekly that I didn't show here, but shooting routine for sure, because it was a lot of shooting routine this is where we get a lot of our shots out of the offense. And, if they're getting repetitions in spots that we don't even take shots from, which anymore, you should be able to shoot everywhere on the court. But if you're taking a bunch of shots in places you don't even deserve to yet, because, maybe you're a terrible shooter or something, it serves no purpose. And so that one, agility shooting, like I said, a lot of times is a warm up. But other ones, it just kind of varies. What do we see from film? What do we see from things we need? We need to change this up, so let's give them something different. And like I said, I mean, you're free to share that whole book out. I know I had some transition drills I kind of threw in there just for fun. But it's free to you to share out.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach, and obviously appreciate you sharing with us again. I feel like, we've had a chance to talk about culture. We've talked about the triangle offense. Now we're diving into shooting drills. And every time you share so many good thoughts and drills and points just about basketball in general. So always appreciate what you have to share. And I want to ask you as we finish up here, coaches that are thinking about shooting in practice with their teams, do you have any parting thoughts or any advice for coaches who want to help their teams improve as shooters, as a team really, in practice, and they're going to incorporate some of these drills, but any advice that you have for coaches out there?
One piece I would ever mention is you're only as good as what you practice. And, the shooting aspect of it anymore, it seems to be the most important part. You still have some old souls like us that really, love the defensive end of the basketball. And a lot of kids today, they watch the NBA and it's 130 to 125. And it's like, well, there wasn't anything for defense in that game. And ironically, it's always the game where somebody sets the blocks record too at the same time. So, what could have been. But for me, if you're not willing to practice the, shooting, and you're not going to be a good offensive team. You can run as many plays as you want, but you have to make sure that you get plenty of shooting up, the right kind of shots and the right kind of speed. But definitely get in the gym and do it. And
well, Coach, I appreciate that, the input and the advice you have for coaches. And I had a chance to look at those transition drills as well. And there's some great drills that you also shared there. So I feel like I'm going to be reaching back out to you again in the near future. And hopefully we can talk transition down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I'm always able to find some time during nap time or something to not for me, of course, I'm not napping, but my kids, by all means.
Funny, we were talking before about, our kids, my kids are napping, your kids are napping. So we got through without having to have any big edits. No kids yelling or waking up from nap time. So, or if they did, I didn't hear them. My wife is upstairs. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again, Coach. Have a great day.
You too, man. Appreciate it.